Welcome everyone. My name is Gabe Baker. I'm the product manager for a product called Frame. I'm going to talk a little bit about Frame, but I mostly want to talk about the metaverse and some things to keep in mind if you even begin teaching inside of the metaverse, and maybe how to get started, some of the things that are great about it, but also some of the things that are you need to be aware of and cautious about as you begin to maybe hold classes inside of online 3D virtual environments. Now, people have been teaching inside of online virtual environments for many years. Many people 10 years ago, 15 years ago, were using platforms like Second Life, which was a very popular virtual world, to teach back then. And everyone is talking about the metaverse now, but the metaverse really has been around since then. But Frame is a little bit different because it runs directly from a web browser. This actually makes it a little bit more accessible for teachers, because if their students just have like Chromebook devices or even mobile devices or even VR headsets like the Oculus Quest, which I have here, you can access Frame from all of those devices right from the web, which makes it a little bit easier to get into than Second Life. Now, some things that are great about teaching inside of the metaverse is the sense of space that you have with your students or your colleagues. So some of the things that teachers do every day in their physical classrooms are really hard to do online. Things like walking to the front of the room to give a presentation, or things like breaking into small groups to have small group sessions. But when you're in a 3D space, whether it's Frame or some other metaverse platform, it's actually really easy to do this thing because you have that sense of space. So here in Frame, you see people can go to these different tables to actually have different conversations. And the voice chat in Frame is spatialized, so you hear people louder if you are closer to them. So breaking into small groups is just as easy as it is in physical space. You just move away from each other. Now, the other really cool thing about teaching in the metaverse is that you can look at and interact with lots of different kinds of content that is hard to interact with when you're on a Zoom call or a video conferencing call. So I'll bring in a few different assets just so that you see what I mean. So of course you can bring in things like images into Frame, and then you can move them around and put them wherever you want and scale them up, and everything you put in will stay there. So the next time you come into the Frame, it'll be right where you left it. But then you can also bring in things like 3D models. So I'm going to bring in a 3D model of a dinosaur. And there it is now. And I can move it around, and I can make it as big as I want. And I can pull out a laser pointer and look at it, and I can be talking about it. Now, in the metaverse, whether it's Frame or something else, of course, you interact with other people as an avatar. And our avatars, I just pulled mine up, are a little bit simple. They don't have arms, they don't have legs, but this is part of what makes Frame run on the web. It's because we had to take a few shortcuts and sacrifice a few things, in this case the limbs of our avatar. But this is why you can actually have 100 people inside of a Frame at once. It's because our avatars are kind of simple, so we like that. But of course, students will love to customize their avatars and things like that. And one of the neat things when you're in the metaverse with students is that you can actually really see what they are looking at, because you see where their head is oriented. So if a student is looking at the wall, at the rock, you'll know that they're not actually looking at the thing that you're trying to get them to look at, and you can tell them to turn around. Now, in addition to 3D models, which of course are really cool, you can also bring in things like 360-degree photos. So maybe you're giving a class about Italy or mountains, and you have a 360 photo, and there are many of these online that you can find for free. I just brought one in and I expanded it so you can see it's just all around us now, and that just took a few clicks. The only hard part is sometimes just finding these photos, but once you know where to find them, it's quite easy. And then you can pull out your laser pointer and help direct people's attention. And then when you're all done, you can just return home to the 3D environment. Of course, a great obvious thing about the metaverse is that the classroom that you're in, the environment that you're in, can really be anything. You're not limited to what traditional classrooms look like or feel like. And in Frame, we provide, a bunch of different environments for your class. Or if you've got your own 3D model of a classroom, we actually let you upload that to Frame as well, which is pretty cool. But I'm going to just pick one of our other environments. You'll see that it takes a few seconds to load. And then once it's loaded, here it is. I just changed the entire classroom. The building I'm in is actually a copy of a building at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. They had us make a digital twin of one of their buildings. But you can see this space is set up nicely for a classroom. Now, you can also do a lot of the sort of normal collaboration things that you can do on video conferencing or other online education platforms. So I just brought in what's called a streaming screen, and I made it really, really big because why not? And now I will, I accidentally just snapped it to the ground. So let me turn on edit mode, turn it on snap to surface. I'm going to snap it there, and I'm going to lock it so I don't make the same mistake. But you can see I just put up my webcam up here, and you can also share your screen. And if you share your screen, you can share it with audio as well if you want to play a YouTube video for everyone to watch. So you really can bring in quite a few things. And then you can launch emoji out of your avatars and so forth. But before I say more about Frame, there were some things I wanted to say about some of the challenges of teaching in the metaverse. And some of these challenges we try to address with some of the features in Frame, but some of them are still just challenges that you should be aware of. Certainly one is that things like online bullying that hopefully are not common in any of your classrooms, but these things are certainly possible in the metaverse. And sometimes it can be hard to keep an eye on everything that's happening in the virtual space. So, a space like this is very big. It can be hard sometimes to know where everyone is. There might be a group of people up here, there might be a group of people down there, and you can only look at so many things at once. It's sort of one of the challenges. Now, we have made a button that will just bring everyone in the space around you in a circle. It's very convenient. It's called Gather to Me. You just click it and everyone in the frame comes around you in a circle. But this is another challenge actually about teaching in the metaverse, is that it can be hard just to actually gather people and keep them there, because students will want to just run around and explore. It's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It's good that they're excited, but it's bad when you're actually trying to get everyone in the same place looking at the same thing. Now, certainly one thing you can do for that is to just move to a smaller frame environment where there's not as much room to explore, but sometimes you want to be in a big space like this. Now, sometimes people will have their microphone on and you don't want it to be on. So we have controls that help you actually you can mute other people's microphones if you want. You can kick them out if you want. And of course, you can control who has access to your frame. So this was one of the problems with Second Life, was that Second Life was a really open metaverse platform. So it was actually hard to have a private gathering in the metaverse in Second Life, because you never know. Someone could have just walked into your land in Second Life. But in Frame, everything is sort of private by default. So when you create a frame, It's just yours. You have a unique URL, and only people that know that link can get in. And even then, you can further password protect it and things like that to really help you keep it safe, just for you and your students. Okay, just wanted to check to see if there were any questions in the chat, but I don't see any yet, and that is no problem. Just looking at a few other things, as I said, sometimes communication can be hard in the metaverse because usually you only hear people if you're close to them. And if people are far away, you won't be able to hear them. We made a few features in Frame that help you with this, though. One of them is the megaphone, which if you turn on, will just make your voice loud and heard by everyone in the space, no matter where they are. And then there's also a text chat, which is just a global text chat for everyone in the frame. In the online menu, you can see a list of everyone who is online. And if you're the teacher or the admin, you have a few superpowers that let you do special things like mute everyone or bring everyone to you, as I said. Now, another very cool thing about the metaverse is that really the possibilities are kind of endless. So each frame is its own link, but you can have as many different frames as you want. And you can make it easy for students to move between different frames. So, I'll go to just another frame right now, and you'll see it's just an entirely separate space that a whole other group of students could be interacting in and having a separate meeting in. So you can kind of make as many different classrooms as you want, as many different spaces as you want, and you can make it easy for students to jump to the space that they need, go to the frame that they need to go to. And each one can be customized. You really have a lot of freedom to customize the space and make it look how you want compared to something like video conferencing. Video conferencing is interesting because you have the video of everyone on the grid and you sort of feel together, but because you actually see the background of everyone that you're interacting with, usually, you're actually given a visual reminder that you're not actually in the same place. Like when you're on a video with someone and you see the background, you see their house sometimes, you see their office, you see a space that's not yours. But when you're in the metaverse interacting as avatars, it really does cultivate this sense of shared space and togetherness and presence. And then, of course, if you come in VR and you're fully immersed, you've even got tracked hands, so you can wave to someone and they'll see your hands waving in the space. That's, of course, very powerful. There are no distractions when you're in VR in a session. There's not a phone that can interrupt you or 100 browser tabs that can interrupt you. I think I'm almost out of time, but I maybe have a few more minutes to go over just maybe a few other things that you can bring into metaverse platforms. You've got audio, you've got video. You really do have all sorts of tools at your disposal. You can turn on speech to text, which will take your audio, and if it's words, it will then put it into the text chat. And then you can actually translate the text chat into one of 20 different languages. So you can have someone with speech to text on, and you could turn on translation, and they could talk, and you will actually see what they say in a language that you've chosen in real time, dynamically translated, which is pretty cool. Okay, so that was just a little bit of summary. I wanted to go over, some things that are great about the metaverse, some of the challenges about the metaverse, and I wanted to introduce you to Frame, which any of you are welcome to get started with, and you can even make a frame for free. It's just you can go to learn.framevr.io, and you'll be right there, and you'll be able to make your own space for free. And if you have any questions, I will put my email address so that you know where to find me. You can reach out directly. And if you'd like a demo right there in Frame, that's fine too. Okay. Any questions or thoughts from anyone? I'm curious if anyone has tried out any other metaverse platforms. Any questions about this technology? Any skeptics who think that the metaverse is stupid? No one should use it. I'm always open to discussion about any of these concepts or thoughts. Tommy says that was a great demo. Thank you very much, Tommy. I hope you create one for yourself. Absolutely. We also have a ton of tutorial videos, and those videos can be found here. For those of you that want to try to create your own, I put a link there, and it just has really short videos about every little topic that you can imagine in Frame. So how to do different kinds of customization, the admin, the administrative tools that you have if you're the teacher, and things like that. So I'll actually go over just a few other aspects of Frame. One of them is maybe this idea of giving a presentation. Let's say you have some content and you're teaching here in the metaverse. And if you think about PowerPoint slides, you know, slide technology is actually very, very old now. It's the idea that you used to have a machine that you would insert slides into, and they would project the slides onto the wall. And when you're taking people through a PowerPoint, you're moving through different two-dimensional slides as you tell your story about some content or any topic. But in Frame or the metaverse, you have a lot of space. You don't need to just have a 2D slide. You can actually work within a 3D canvas. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to bring in a few things. I'm going to bring in a car, just to bring in a few things in quickly. So here's my car. I'm going to put it right on the ground. I'm going to make it big. But let's say you're giving a presentation, and at first you want to talk about the car, but then you want to talk about something else. And the way you can do this is with a feature called scenes. So when you bring in content to Frame, you're bringing it into a scene, but you can move between different scenes. So I just moved to scene 2, where I've already set up a different 360 photo. Now I move to scene 3, which is a different scene altogether, where I could have an astronaut, and I could have a PDF, and I could set up anything that I want. But then when I take my audience through the presentation, I don't need to just be limited by a PDF or a PowerPoint that I put in front of the room. Of course, you can do that in Frame if you want. You can bring in that PDF and just make it really big and take people through it. But if you want to take your students on a spatial journey, you can actually navigate through different sets of content. Like I just moved right to a 360 photo. Then I take people to my next scene, which has a different 3D model and a PDF inside of it. And you can set up as many different scenes as you want and take your audience on that kind of journey, which can be much more interactive than just moving through different PowerPoint slides, because you have different kinds of content to work with, and you can put it anywhere you want inside of the 3D space. So it's kind of an advanced Frame feature, this scenes feature, but it's actually quite powerful. And given that I had a bit of extra time, I wanted to go over it. But there are actually many other features like that in Frame that they're not at the surface level of the product, but if you just look at all of those tutorial videos, then you'll actually find them. And we have some teachers that do some incredible things with scenes. Also, these streaming screens are super interesting because sometimes a teacher will just have their students come into Frame and share their screen as they're doing their work. And the teacher will just move around the frame and talk to different students about the work that they're doing. It's not always one big classroom with the teacher just talking at the students. Sometimes the students are just doing their work and they're sharing their screen and they've got their little area, and the teacher just moves around and interacts with each student at a time, looking at what it is that they're working on and then moving on to the next one. Because this kind of thing, the metaverse, is really easy in the metaverse. But when you're on a Zoom call, it's not like every student can share their screen at once and you can easily move around between them. But when you have this big sense of space in the metaverse, it's very much possible. So we have some teachers that's what they do. It's students come in and work on their own, and the teacher just moves around and works with each student individually, and they're able to quickly see what the students are working on just by moving around. Okay, well, I think I've, at this point, probably used just about all of my time. Oh, Tommy says, is GDPR a problem? So GDPR isn't a problem because we don't actually require you to make accounts to use Frame. So at a fundamental level, students can actually just use Frame without even making accounts. We don't really gather a lot of data in Frame, and we don't store it, certainly not the audio or the video or anything like that. Now, for a whole class, I do want to say one of the limits of Frame is how many people can be in there at one time. We don't let you have really more than 50 or 75 people inside of a single frame at once. Of course, you can have multiple different frames, but those would be different classrooms. People from one frame can't hear people from another frame. You can only hear who's in the same frame as you. But this number is going to go up. If you have a really big class, like 100, we're actually letting a few people experiment with 100 people inside of the same frame right now. Okay, how am I doing for time now, Hakon?
We're down to 1.5 minutes.
Down to 1.5 minutes. Okay, wonderful. I want to, for those of you that are keen to maybe get started, I just want to walk you through the steps here. We try to make it as easy as we can. If you go to this website, which I put in the links, you'll see this page, just a 2-step process. You make an account, and then you create a frame. We don't spam you with marketing emails if you make an account, I promise you. When you create a frame, you can pick which environment you have for your frame. You can always change this later, so don't worry about it. On this same page, though, I mentioned the resources. This is where you can see tutorial videos about all of these different features, which is very cool. And also in the resources is, if you click on Help and Forum, it will actually take you to our Discord server, which is an online community where our users interact. And many of them are teachers, and they're sharing their ideas about how to teach in the metaverse and different things that they're doing in Frame. There's a whole channel for education where people, our users, just discuss with each other about how they're using Frame with their students. So it's a very cool resource as well. And that should do it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this talk. I encourage you to be experimental, but also be skeptical. Just because some technology is new and kind of cool looking, it doesn't mean that it will be effective. It's really up to you to determine that and experiment and make it work for you. Okay, I'm done.